أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي ربي يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير آمين يا رب العالمين.
In this lecture, we will study how to create emphasis or ta'keed in Jumla Ismiya. We will start with a simple Jumla such as Zaidun Salihun. Zaid is pious. This is a simple Jumla Ismiya where I am simply stating that Zaid is pious. There is no emphasis in this Jumla. I am not emphasizing that Zaid is pious. So, inshallah, in this lecture we will study how to create emphasis in Jumla Ismiya. Let us look at some examples from the English language. On this side we have Zaidun Salihun. Zaid is pious. In this sentence there is no emphasis. If I want to add emphasis to Zaid is pious, I will say something on the lines of indeed Zaid is pious. Surely Zaid is pious. Verily Zaid is pious. No doubt Zaid is pious. We can clearly see that by adding indeed, surely, verily, and no doubt to the sentence Zaid is pious, we are creating emphasis in the Jumla, or we are creating emphasis in the sentence. Similarly, in Arabic, we can also make additions to Jumla Ismiya in order to add more emphasis to the Jumla. Emphasis is created in Jumla Ismiya using two words. Number one, lam. Number two, inna. Please note that lam and inna are two words, but they belong to the category of harf. We studied that all words or all meaningful words in Arabic or kalima can be either ism, fail, or harf. Lam, which is used to create emphasis in Jumla Ismiya, and inna are both examples of harf. This lam is identified with a zabar on it, and it is used to create emphasis in Jumla Ismiya. Inna is also used to create emphasis in Jumla Ismiya. In terms of terminologies, this lam can also be called lam-e-ta'keed in Urdu, and this inna can also be called harf-e-ta'keed in Urdu. Since we have introduced a new type of lam in our study, it is important to revise the previous types of lam that we studied in the course. We studied lam-ut-tarif and lam-ijara. Lam-ut-tarif is identified as follows, that is lam with the sukoon on it. Lam-ut-tarif is used to make an ism definite, meaning that it is used to convert an indefinite ism into a definite ism, or to convert a nakra ism into a marfa ism. Lam-ut-tarif has no effect on the status of the ism that follows it. Lam-ijara was studied in the section of huruf-ijara. This is identified as lam with zair under it. Lam-ijara will impact the status of the ism that follows it. It will make the ism that follows it majroor. Please note that when lam-ijara is used with pronouns, it will have a zabar on it and it will be written as follows. When it is written with personal pronouns, lam-ijara will have zabar on it, such as lahu, lahuma, lahum, and so on, with the exception of when it is used with first person singular personal pronoun, in which case it will be written as li or liya. Let us study the key points of lam ta'kid or lam of emphasis and inna. Point number 1. Lam ta'kid and inna create equal emphasis in Jumla Ismiya, meaning that it is not that lam ta'kid is weaker than inna or inna is weaker than lam ta'kid. Both lam ta'kid and inna create equal amount of emphasis in Jumla Ismiya. Point number 2. Inna is used much more frequently in the Holy Quran as compared to lam ta'kid. Point number 3. Inna will come at the start of Jumla Ismiya and it will change the status or i'rab of Mubtada. We know that Jumla Ismiya has Mubtada and Khabar. Mubtada comes first and it is followed by the Khabar. But when we add inna to Jumla Ismiya, it will come at the start of Jumla Ismiya and it will have an effect on the status or i'rab of Mubtada. When we use lam ta'kid in Jumla Ismiya, it will have no effect on the status of the ism that follows it. To recap, lam ta'kid or the lam of emphasis and inna create the same amount of emphasis. Inna is used much more frequently in the Holy Quran. Inna will come at the start of Jumla Ismiya and it will change the status of Mubtada. Now we will study how lam ta'kid or the lam of emphasis can be used to create emphasis in Jumla Ismiya. We will take the example of Zaidun Swalihun as Jumla Ismiya. Zaid is pious. Now, if I want to create emphasis in Zaidun Swalihun using lam ta'kid, I will add lam ta'kid to Zaidun Swalihun and I will have La Zaidun Swalihun. In this case, clearly we are seeing that the lam ta'kid or lam of emphasis is being added to the Jumla Ismiya Zaidun Swalihun. Please note that the addition of lam ta'kid is not creating any change in the status of Mubtada. Zaidun Swalihun is translated as Zaid is pious. La Zaidun Swalihun has a few possible translations. Indeed, Zaid is pious. Surely Zaid is pious. Verily Zaid is pious. No doubt Zaid is pious. So we are clearly seeing that with the addition of lam ta'kid or the lam of emphasis to Jumla Ismiya, we are able to create emphasis in the Jumla Ismiya. Next, we will study the use of inna to create emphasis in Jumla Ismiya. We will use the same example, Zaidun Swalihun, Zaid is pious. If I add inna to Zaidun Swalihun, I will have Inna Zaidan Swalihun. Zaidun Swalihun will become Inna Zaidan Swalihun. Clearly, we can see that the addition of inna is changing the status of Mubtada from Rafa to Nasab. So, the addition of inna to Jumla Ismiya will make the Mubtada Mansoob from Marfu. Zaidun Swalihun, Zaid is pious. Inna Zaidan Swalihun, indeed Zaid is pious. Surely Zaid is pious. Verily Zaid is pious. No doubt Zaid is pious. If we pay attention, the emphasis that is being created by inna is the same as that was created by lam ta'kid or lam of emphasis. Please note that the addition of inna to Zaidun Swalihun causes Zaidun to change into Zaidan. In the case of Zaidun Salihun, Zaidun is clearly Mubtada and it is Marfu. As we recall, Mubtada must be Marfu, Khabar must be Marfu. So Zaidun meets the requirement for it to be Mubtada because it is Marfu. But what about Zaidan? Zaidan is not Marfu, it is Mansub. So in the case of Zaidan, we will have to change some terminologies. Because of inna, Zaidan can no longer be called Mubtada as it is no longer Marfu. Zaidun was clearly Mubtada because it is Marfu. But for Zaidan, grammatically speaking, we can no longer call it Mubtada as it is no longer Marfu. Zaidan can be called the ism of inna or inna's ism. In the case of Salihun, because of inna, Salihun will now be called the khabar of inna or inna's khabar. Zaidun Salihun is a Jumla Ismiya, in which case Zaidun is Mubtada and Salihun is khabar. We added inna to Zaidun Salihun to create emphasis in Zaidun Salihun, and we got Inna Zaidan Salihun. In the case of Inna Zaidan Salihun, Zaidan cannot be called Mubtada as it is no longer Marfu. Zaidan is the ism of Inna or Inna's ism. Salihun, because of Inna, will be called the khabar of Inna or Inna's khabar. To recap, Zaidun Salihun does not have any emphasis. In the case of Zaidun Salihun, Zaidun is Mubtada, Salihun is khabar. If we add Lam Ta'keed or Lam of emphasis to Zaidun Salihun, we will have La Zaidun Salihun. In this case, Zaidun is still Marfu, so Zaidun is Mubtada, Salihun is khabar. And as compared to Zaidun Salihun, La Zaidun Salihun has emphasis in it. When we added Inna to Zaidun Salihun, we have Inna Zaidan Salihun. Zaidun became Zaidan. And now Zaidan will be called Inna's ism or the ism of Inna, and Salihun will be called Inna's khabar or the khabar of Inna. As compared to Zaidun Salihun, Inna Zaidan Salihun has emphasis in it. And La Zaidun Salihun has the same amount of emphasis as Inna Zaidan Salihun. Now we will study how to double the emphasis in Jumla Ismiya. We have the example of Zaidun Salihun. If we want to add emphasis to Zaidun Salihun, we will add Inna to Zaidun Salihun. But if we want to double the emphasis in this Jumla Ismiya, we can add Lam Ta'keed or the Lam of emphasis to this Jumla Ismiya as well. The result of adding Inna and Lam Ta'keed to Zaidun Salihun will be Inna Zaidan La Salihun. Please note that with the addition of Inna, Zaidun became Zaidan, as we studied that Inna will come at the beginning of Jumla Ismiya and it will change the status of Mubtada to Mansub. The addition of Lam Ta'keed to Salihun does not have any impact on the status of Salihun. Please also note that whenever we are adding Inna and Lam Ta'keed to Jumla Ismiya, Inna will come at the beginning of the Jumla Ismiya. because of the addition of inna and lam ta'kid to Zaidun Salihun, we have doubled the emphasis in Zaidun Salihun. The possible translation of Inna Zaidan la Salihun is challenging in English. It can truly be captured in the Arabic language, but we can try to translate it on the lines of indeed Zaid is surely pious, indicating double emphasis. Now we will study how to add even further emphasis to Jumla Ismiya after we have added inna and lam ta'kid. To our example of Zaidun Salihun, we added inna and we added lam ta'kid to double the emphasis in the Jumla Ismiya, and we got the result of inna Zaidan la Salihun. We can add further emphasis by saying Wallahi inna Zaidan la Salihun. In this case, we are swearing by Allah that Zaid truly and surely is pious. So in the case of Wallahi inna Zaidan la Salihun, we have three sources of emphasis. One is coming from the fact that we are swearing by Allah. The second is through the addition of inna, and the third is through the addition of lam ta'kid. We will revise the addition of emphasis to Jumla Ismiya using the example of Zaidun Salihun. Zaidun Salihun has no emphasis. Zaidun is mubtada, it is marfu. Salihun is khabar, it is also marfu. We added emphasis to Zaidun Salihun by adding lam ta'kid or the lam of emphasis. With the addition of lam ta'kid, Zaidun Salihun became la Zaidun Salihun. Please note that the addition of lam ta'kid did not cause any change in the status of the ism that followed it. In the case of la Zaidun Salihun, Zaidun is mubtada because it stays marfu and Salihun is khabar. We further added emphasis using inna. With the addition of inna to Zaidun Salihun, it became inna Zaidan Salihun. Zaidan is mansoob. Zaidun became Zaidan because of the addition of inna. Zaidan will no longer be called mubtada. It will be called inna's ism or the ism of inna. Salihun will be called inna's khabar or the khabar of inna. We brought inna and lam ta'kid together to double the emphasis in Zaidun Salihun, and we got inna Zaidan la Salihun. Finally, we added even more emphasis, more than double, by bringing in Wallahi, meaning that we are swearing by Allah, and we have Wallahi inna Zaidan la Salihun. Please note that there is one final source of emphasis that can be added to Jumla Ismiya, and that emphasis comes from the one who is addressing. It is called hidden emphasis because it will not be reflected in the text. For example, if a command comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran, it will imply the strongest emphasis. So if there is an ayah in the Holy Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving a command, there is hidden emphasis in that ayah because that message is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. So that is the final source of emphasis which comes from the one who is addressing.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.